I'm Naomi Fletcher, a 31-year-old cardiothoracic surgeon from Chicago. The soup landed like a slap of scalding beef broth across my face, spilling from my hair onto the white tablecloth during my mother's 53rd birthday celebration. My brother Ryan threw the empty terrain down and snarled, "You have 15 minutes to get away of this family." Mom and Dad stared at their plates. My younger sister Kayla applauded as if it was the best show she'd seen all year. I wiped my eyes, reached into my purse, retrieved the large folder, and dropped it on the table with a bang that quieted the room. "Fine," I replied. The voice was icy cold. "In 15 minutes, everything you own will be gone. If your family has ever turned on you, comment where you're watching and subscribe. Stay tuned because things are about to get worse." Growing up in Charleston's steamy Low Country, our family resided in a decrepit wooden house right on the Ashley River. The building had been creaking since the 1980s, with peeling paint and a wraparound porch that collapsed from too many summer storms. Dad, Richard Fletcher, worked long hours as a construction engineer and returned home dirty and quiet most nights. Patricia Fletcher, who taught 3rd grade at the local primary school, always smelled of chalk and cafeteria pizza. When I was 4, my brother Ryan Fletcher arrived, the middle child who soon became the center of attention. From the start, he made the most of what we had. Private school tuition, paid for with overtime, includes new sneakers each season and a second-hand dirt bike for his 10th birthday. Mom would grin when he brought home a B-, claiming he was still finding his way. Dad clapped him on the back for every minor league hit, including the birds. Kayla Fletcher, the baby born 6 years after Ryan, sealed the deal on partiality. By the time she was in kindergarten, the rules had changed completely. Her elementary school was the fancy one across town, complete with uniforms and Latin classes. Mom drove her there every morning, making organic lunches, and I took the public bus with a peanut butter sandwich. Kayla's dance recital had front row seating for the entire family. My science fair achievements were acknowledged with a short nod before Dad returned his attention to the television. Money for Ryan's hobbies flowed like a river outside our door. Guitar classes, summer camps, and even a part-time job at Dad's firm that was more social than productive. When he turned 16, a shiny red pickup appeared in his driveway. Dad's bonus from a large project. Kayla turned 18 and received keys to a sleek white vehicle at her graduation party, which included balloons and a college diploma-shaped cake. I watched from the sidelines, saving every paycheck from hospital shifts to pay off my own debts. Grandpa Harold Fletcher lived 20 minutes away in a modest brick ranch house replete with ancient medical books and medication bottles from his pharmaceutical career. He had started a little business in the 1970s, distributing heart medications to local clinics, before selling it for a good profit. In his senior years he slowed down, but his mind remained keen. Dad came maybe twice a year, often rushing in with excuses about work deadlines. Mom sent birthday cards but skipped the actual days, citing grading piles and school functions. Ryan ignored Grandpa's invitations entirely. He'd skip Sunday dinners to hang out with buddies, texting that he was too busy, even when Grandpa called. Kayla was terrible. She'd promised to come by after cheer practice, but then disappeared with stories about study groups or mall outings. Grandpa never grumbled aloud, but I could see the despair in his eyes as the phone went unanswered again. I made an effort. Every month, regardless of residency schedule, I flew down from Chicago or drove the entire 12 hours. We'd sit on his back patio sipping sweet tea, as he told stories about early medication studies and patients he'd indirectly assisted. He'd question me on anatomy, nodding in approval as I answered, "You have the fire, Naomi," he would say quietly. "The others are just passing through." I dismissed it as old man talk, but it lingered. When I was 25, Grandpa called me aside after lunch. His hands trembled slightly as he handed me a faded picture of his first lab team. "Keep pushing," he whispered. "Madison needs people who care more about lives than lifestyles." Ryan had skipped that visit to go to the beach. Kayla texted that she had a headache. Grandpa did not mention them again that day. Holidays accentuated the difference. Thanksgiving meant Ryan cutting the turkey like a king. Kayla took selfies with the pies. Grandpa sat at the end of the table, picking at his plate, while Dad led the conversation with construction site stories. Mom complained about the younger two refilling their cups before anyone else. I helped clear the plates, catching Grandpa's glare across the kitchen. When no one was looking, he would mouth thank you. Summers provided more of the same. Ryan and Kayla lounged by the river in their new boats. Dad funded loud music that resonated across the sea. Grandpa's invitations to go fishing went ignored. Instead, I joined him, casting lines in silence while he offered patience and precision teachings applicable to both surgery and hooking. Details important, he'd say. Skip them and everything unravels. By my late 20s, the pattern was established. Ryan hinted that he needed funds for ideas and received swift checks from his father without scrutiny. Kayla's college fund expanded, whereas mine came from scholarships I pursued on my own. Grandpa's health deteriorated due to heart problems, which was ironic given that he had benefited from remedies. Visits to his residence provided an escape from the noise of partiality at home. He'd greet me at the door with a limp hug and bright eyes. "Tell me about your cases," he'd say, sinking into his recliner. I discussed sophisticated valve repairs and bypass grafts under pressure. He listened closely and followed up with questions that demonstrated his continued interest in the field. He would whisper, "Proud of you," every time. The others hardly get mentioned. Grandpa grabbed my arm one rainy afternoon as I was packing to leave. He explained that family isn't always defined by blood. It's who turns up. I nodded, remembering the vacant chairs at his table throughout the years. Little did I know how those words would reverberate. 8 years into my rigorous Chicago residency, the operating room became my war. Cases piled up with congenital abnormalities, torn aortas, and hearts deteriorating after years of neglect. I thrived on the pressure sewing of arteries while monitors beeped in frenzied rhythm. Colleagues called me relentlessly. Patients called me a miracle. The breakthrough occurred during the midnight shift. A 68-year-old CEO fainted during a gala event due to significant myocardial infection. His vital signs collapsed while being transported to our trauma bay. The attendee handed me the scalpel. When issues arose, the first assistant took over as the leader. I fractured the chest, bypassed 3 blocked vessels, and used a temporary pump to stabilize. He was able to breathe on his own after 12 hours. The local news burst. A young surgeon saves the tech titan. My photo graced the Tribune headlines, hailing the Southern Heart Whisperer. Reporters camped outside the hospital. Interviews followed CNN-affiliated medical podcasts. The CEO mailed a handwritten note. "You offered me a second opportunity." His corporation gave equipment to our cardiac unit. My name traveled in boardrooms, and fellowship opportunities flooded my inbox. I stayed centered and focused on the next chart. Ryan returned home and chased several headlines. At 23, he dropped out of community college after 1 semester, calling traditional education a swindle. He introduced the HealthTrack app's wearable integration for real-time vitals, promising a revolution in preventive treatment. Investors are rather tiny, but banks are somewhat larger. Dad co-signed the original loan, but Ryan required more. A local lender granted $1.6 million based on prototypes and personality. He rented a co-working space downtown and hired coders fresh from boot camps. Marketing spilled across social. Ryan wearing hoodies demonstrates mock-ups at conferences. Kayla, aged 15, joined in for photo opportunities, posing with mock devices. Early demos were impressive. Beta users have signed up. Ryan purchased a condominium overlooking the Battery and leased a Tesla on credit. "This is only the beginning," he texted the family group. Cracks appeared quickly. Coding delays increased. Servers failed during testing. Competitors introduced cheaper versions of identical features. Funding rounds have stalled. Investors wanted income, not renderings. Ryan doubled down on borrowing against the app's intellectual property. Suppliers requested payment beforehand. Staff departed due to underpaid salaries. By year 2, the $1.6 million had vanished due to burn rate. The collapse occurred suddenly. A key partner pulled out. A lawsuit was filed for violation of contract. Bank statements went red. Overdraft fees and collection calls. Ryan liquidated assets. Condo sold at a loss. Tesla repossessed. Creditors circled. When his rent ran out, he moved into a studio and began couch surfing. Kayla, 19, was in her first year of college when she felt the ripple. Tuition checks bounced. Dad completed 1 semester before dropping out. To save money on dorm fees, She reduced her coursework to part-time and moved in with Ryan. They shared takeout while bickering about expenses. Kayla waitressed at night, sending parts home. Ryan promised to pivot weekly, but his pitches fell flat. Grandpa Harold observed from afar. His health deteriorated steadily. The congestive failure medications he once prescribed are now keeping him alive. Hospital stays have lengthened. Oxygen tanks became permanent. I coordinated treatment remotely, talking with his cardiologist between shifts. Ryan sent basic get-well text. Kayla shared sympathy emojis on social media. 3 years ago, the end came quietly. Grandpa slid away in his sleep monitors, which flatlined at morning. I flew down right away to handle the arrangements, while the others arrived later. The funeral gathered a small throng, including old colleagues and a few neighbors. Dad spoke briefly. Mom dabbed her eyes. Ryan examined his phone. Kayla scanned through feeds. Following the event, a lawyer approached me in the parking lot. Miss Fletcher, Harold requested discreet delivery. He handed Naomi Fletcher a sealed envelope stuffed with documentation on official letterhead, declaring that the inheritance matter was strictly confidential. There are no details, only directions to contact for scheduling. I tucked it away, my mind whirling. The family assembled at the house following the funeral. Ryan examined Grandpa's watch collection. Kayla fingered the ancient vases. Dad recommended selling the land and splitting the revenues fairly. I remained silent, the envelope burning in my pocket. The lawyer's statements mirrored a single label. I excused me early, citing airline delays. Back in Chicago, I opened the letter by myself. It listed assets, firm shares, and trust information, but certain portions required in-person verification. It emphasized that this was exclusively for your eyes. I kept it in my safe and told no one. Ryan called many weeks later, looking for any documentation Grandpa mentioned. I evaded with work excuses. Ryan is visited by debt collectors on a daily basis. Kayla transferred to a school closer to his residence and shared grocery errands. They relied on Mom for utilities and Dad for auto insurance. I sent nothing. My personal loans and fellowship remained unpaid. The secret grew heavier with each evasive conversation. The media's focus vanished. Surgeries resumed. Another high-profile save for a senator's wife spread my name. Offers rushed in for private practice partnerships and research funds. I weighed the choices. The envelope's promise remains unfulfilled. Ryan's last pitch failed horribly. Demo day went online with a problem. Investors walked. A bankruptcy petition was then filed. A total of 1.6 million unsecured personal guarantees have been triggered. Kayla dropped out of school and began working as a barista to supplement her education. They shared a one-bedroom apartment, and tension was thick. I booked the lawyer's meeting quietly. Flight booked for a work conference. The inheritance remained my exclusive responsibility. The family is unaware of the upcoming shift. The call arrived shortly after a 22-hour shift. Phone buzzed against my scrubs as I sank into the on-call bunk. Ryan's name appeared. I responded, expecting another bailout plea. Instead, his voice dripped. Honey. Hey sis, Mom's turning 53 next weekend. Big party at the house. Everyone's coming. We're all so proud of you. The famous surgeon is now. Kayla jumped into the line extension pickup. Yeah, Naomi, you must come. It would not be the same without our star. Their exuberance seemed contrived, but tiredness triumphed. I agreed, moaning about the scheduling. Sleep came in fits. Morning rounds merged into discharge summaries. Between patients, I slipped out into Michigan Avenue. The Swiss watch store glittered beneath the headlights. I chose a slim gold timepiece for Mom. Classic face leather strap exudes simple elegance. The clerk etched a loving message for Mom. The letter N appears on the back. Boxed and ribboned. It cost 2 paychecks but was worth it. Flights were expensive at the last minute. I elected to drive instead. 12 hours on straight highway passing through cornfields and mountains. I packed an overnight bag cooler with energy drinks. Podcast playlist focusing on aortic repair. Hit the road at sunrise. The Chicago skyline fades in the rear view. Miles ticked by. Indiana's flatlands give way to Kentucky hills. Radio stations switched from urban sounds to country twang. I once stopped for gas in Knoxville and stretched my legs under fluorescent pumps. I wondered how Mom would react to the watch on her wrist that had been a cheap gift from Dad years ago. The phone was pinging in the middle. Sarah Mitchell, my ER nurse best friend since internship, texted, and I heard back from a Charleston contact. Your siblings are asking around about estate attorneys. Do not go. They are swirling money pots. I stared at the screen, my thumbs hovering. Another message Ryan has been given is that eliminating your CEO will save you money with lenders. Smells like setup. I pulled over at a rest area, engine idling. Sarah and I met on day 1 of orientation. Her firm hands throughout codes helped me maintain my precision in the midst of pandemonium. She was aware that the family dynamics had listened to rants about cheap wine. Trust your instincts. Her final text reads, Gut told me to keep my eyes open. I returned to I-26 and saw welcoming South Carolina signage. As Charleston approached, the lowland was illuminated gold by the sunset. Familiar exits brought back memories, but I shoved them down. Concentrate on the party, the present, and the drive home. Arrived after dark with bright house lights ahead, and parked behind a row of cars, which was more than expected. I grabbed the watch box and threw the bag over my shoulder. The door opened before I knocked. Ryan smiled broadly and drew me into a hug that lasted too long. The hero returns. Kayla bounced in the hallway taking a photo. #family reunion. Mom appeared, her apron sprinkled with flowers. Her eyes widened when she saw that my scrubs were still on. Naomi, honey, you drove all this way. I presented the box. She cautiously unwrapped it, letting out a gasp as the gold caught light. It's beautiful. I slipped it on my wrist to morph. Dad nodded agreement from the couch, beer in hand. Guests were neighbors, former classmates, and a few faces from Ryan's failing company. Sarah's warning reverberated. Ryan steered me to the kitchen, arm across my shoulders. We have great plans for Mother's Day. Speeches and toasts. Kayla poured fragrant tea, ice clinking. Their energy pulsed unnaturally. I've settled into the guest room upstairs. The same one from childhood posters is long gone. Unpacked essentials set the alarm for an early departure postpartum. Sarah's texts went unread again. Downstairs, laughter rose. Barbecue aroma drifting. Lay awake staring at the ceiling cracks. 12 hours behind the wheel. Body suffering but mind alert. The watch sat no longer wrapped as a present, but wrapped tightly in expectancy and dread. The house shone with string lights in the backyard, strands crisscrossing above checkered-clothed folding tables. Nearly 50 people socialized on the grass. Cousins, old high school classmates, Dad's work colleagues, nursing drinks. Smoke erupted from the barbecue, where ribs sizzled, and the hickory fragrance mixed with the citrus from lemonade pitchers. Mom held court near the dessert station, accepting hugs while her new watch sparkled. Dad flipped burgers, his apron covered with sauce. Ryan went around with a plate of DLL'd eggs, laughing loudly at every joke. Kayla posed for group shots while her phone flashed. I took a dish and loaded it with coleslaw and beef. I was cornered initially by a neighbor. I heard you were rescuing lives up north. There were further queries regarding procedures and city living. I responded pleasantly. Fork halfway to mouth. Ryan spotted me across the yard and motioned me over to his cluster. Everyone, this is the sister I told you about. The heart doc. Claps rippled. He wrapped his arm around my shoulders. Health tracks are gaining new vitality. Investors are circling again. The second prototype will be available next quarter. Heads nodded, impressed. One person at Apollo inquired about technical details. Ryan fired off keywords. AI integration and cloud syncing for debt restructuring. Soon there will be a new beginning. Kayla piped in, her voice carrying. And I'm off to Europe for a study abroad program in Paris. Fashion marketing semester. We also applaud her. She twirled her sundress, revealing half of her scholarship and saving the rest. Guests argued over her ambition. The conversation switched to me. An aunt leaned in. Naomi is still single. With that salary you could own a mansion. Laughter erupted. Ryan grinned. Yes, renting a condo. Dr. Money is going for ramen noodles. Kayla joined the pylon. Living as a medical student. Pizza boxes and takeaway. When will the upgrade occur? More chuckles. I feigned a smile and chewed slowly. Priorities differ. Dad called for toasts. Glasses were raised to serve sweet tea and beer to others. Mom was beaming from center stage. Ryan spoke first, his voice loud. To the woman who kept us together. Cheers. Kayla made a heartbreaking statement about her best mother ever. I remained silent while emptying the plate. Ryan drew Kayla aside near the hedge close. His whisper echoed on the breeze. Simply keep her from interfering. Kayla nodded, her gaze darting towards me. Music began to play from a Bluetooth speaker, pounding out oldies. Couples danced on the patio bricks. I slipped to the edge of the table to refill the tea. Another relative approached. Your siblings are on fire. Ryan's comeback. Kayla's adventures. You must be thrilled. Nodded vaguely. I watched Ryan Gladhand, a banker type, gesturing wildly about equity rounds. Kayla scrolled her phone, showing Europe brochures to a circle of girls. Their excitement was genuine, mine guarded. The fire pit crackled to life. Marshmallows passed. Stories flowed, mostly starring the younger two. I contributed little, observing dynamics unchanged. Mom found me later, watch glinting. Thank you again. Hug tight. Dad grunted nearby. Ryan stood up, lifting the entire soup tranche, Kayla giggling beside him. The remaining guests quieted, sensing a shift. He cleared his throat theatrically. Before dessert, a quick announcement. Grandpa left an inheritance for the entire family, pharma company shares, plus a trust fund. Naomi receives nothing. Silence fell like a curtain. Forks paused in midair. Mom's smile froze. Dad placed down his glass. I met Ryan's eyes. That's not right. He never stated it was for everyone, and his face turned red. Are you calling me a liar? The tin tilted and hot beef soup cascaded over my head, burning scalp chunks sliding down my neck onto the dress. Gasps erupted and Kayla covered her mouth, eyes wide with mock shock. Ryan slammed the empty vessel. You have 15 minutes to leave this family. Kayla stepped forward, voice sweet. Just accept it, sis. You don't have a share. I wiped broth from my lashes with a napkin, reached into my bag, pulled the thick folder and slammed it center table. Plates rattled. Dad stared blankly. Ryan's mouth opened and closed. Kayla's giggle died, and she pointed to the clause. See the signatures, witnesses, notary seals. There is no provision for the cold-hearted. That's you. A cousin leaned in, scanning pages. It's legit. Murmurs spread. Phones emerged, flashes capturing the document. Someone whispered. He cut them out. Ryan lunged for the papers. I pulled back. Touch it and it's tampering. He froze, veins bulging. Kayla tugged his sleeve. Do something. Dad finally spoke. Cards aren't considered gifts, and she averted her gaze. Her wrist was heavy with a watch. Guests shifted uncomfortably. One aunt murmured, explaining the partiality stories. Another concurred. Naomi was always present. Ryan clenched his fists. Kayla's gaze shifted to the exits. The no contest clause will be activated, and any challenge will permanently invalidate your claim. But we need you assumed. Close the folder. Assumptions cost. Soup cooled sticky on my skin, but the room heated with tension. Phones filmed surreptitiously. A neighbor live streamed to a group chat. Comments scrolled, audible drama. She got it all. Mom contacted me. Naomi spoke privately. Dad rubbed his temples. Ryan kicked a chair leg. Kayla scrolled frantically, possibly looking for legal loopholes. Guests formed clusters debating authenticity. Pointed to the date signed 6 months before passing. Updated after your last no-show birthday. Ryan roared. You hid this private designation. Lawyer's orders. Shrug. You announced first. Silence thickened. Broth spilled from my hair into the tablecloth, turning it red. No one moved to aid and a guest broke it. Ryan's glare could melt steel. Kayla whispered urgently in his ear. He shook her off. Fold her back in the bag. I said. Clock's ticking. Ryan's fist raised. I slid 3 stapled packets from the inner pocket and spread them like playing cards. Packet 1, IRS Form 4564, official seal, addressed Ryan M. Fletcher. Taxpayer ID ending 8291. Header notice of audit. Health Track LLC bullet points listed deducted $680,000 in marketing, 0 invoices, $420,000 equipment leases, assets never delivered, closing, civil fraud penalty, 75% criminal referral pending. I explained calmly, your bankruptcy lawyer forwarded this when I inquired about liens, public record now. Ryan tore it open, paper ripping. They can't prove, they already did. Kayla's lips trembled as I mentioned that the lawyer had emailed me the updated standard for sole beneficiary. If any beneficiary, heir, or claimant contests the validity or distribution of this trust, such party forfeits all rights to any benefit here and is liable for opposing legal fees. The notary seal was dated 3 months after the will was signed. So if we sue, we get nothing and pay my legal fees. Packet 38, page debt assignment, bank letter, head, page 1, transfer of promissory note at tight 2022 0 psych in principal $1,600. 000 from First Coastal Bank to Naomi Fletcher, MD. My signature notarized beside Bank VP. Page 5. Acceleration clause triggered. Page 7. I bought the note to secure Grandpa's legacy after receiving notification of the foreclosure timeframe. The auction was held on Friday, Monday. Ryan's scream shattered glassware, and he tossed the contract, causing pages to flutter like confetti. Kayla went to her knees, buckling. Mom moaned. This is cruel. This is consequence. A guest murmured. She bought his bankruptcy. Ryan raced at me. I stepped behind the grill. Officers approached at the gate. 2 uniforms, 1 sergeant. Welfare check. At 9:47 p.m., the call sergeant stated that a neighbor had reported threats. I nodded. Caller. All evidence is here. Ryan jabbed his finger. She attacked me. The sergeant looked at the soup crust on my hair. Then Ryan's clean shirt. No marks. Civil. Kayla clutched the caudal copy. We'll be homeless by Friday, I confirmed. Dad supported Mom inside. Guests vanished into shadows. Ryan kicked the table leg, which cracked. Cuffs flashed and he froze. Kayla followed the officer's voice, breaking. Kayla dropped out of college in the middle of the semester, and the foreclosure notice was taped to Ryan's door 4 months later, with a red stamp glaring under the porch light. He filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and his debts were discharged except for the IRS. Tuition, unpaid, credits frozen. She clocked full shifts at a downtown coffee chain. Apron-stained tips meager. Double espressos for tourists. Fake smiles through exhaustion. Dreams of Europe faded to inventory counts. A handwritten letter arrived from Mom and Dad, envelope scented with old perfume. Pages of apologies. We were blind. Please forgive. I read once by the fireplace, fed it to the flames. Ashes scattered. No response sent. The pharma shares transferred seamlessly, $3.5 million in blue chip stock, dividends rolling quarterly. Board seat offered. I accepted remotely. Profits funded expansions in cardiac research. The trust's $1.8 million liquidated clean. I established the Harold Fletcher Scholarship Fund. Full rides for low-income South Carolina pre-med students from the Low Country. First recipients 2 from Charleston Public Schools, essays echoing Grandpa's passion for accessible care. Blocked every number, Ryan's burner attempts. Kayla's please parents landline. Changed locks on my Chicago condo, security upgraded. Deleted contacts, photos. Group chats. Clean slate. Colleagues noticed the shift. Fewer family mentions. Sharper focus in O. Sarah toasted the fund launch over wine. Legacy secured. Ryan spotted once at a gas station, unkempt, pumping cheap fuel into a beater. Eyes met. He looked away first. Kayla served me unknowingly at the airport kiosk. Name tag shiny, order taken mechanical. I paid cash. Left no tip, boarded without a word. True family isn't blood. It's earned and repaid respect. The parents tried one holiday card, which went unopened.